Hello.
Hello. That's a good picture of you. That's screensaver picture. So
Thank you. Much better. It looks much better than I do in person. I won't say.
Hello.
hello. Oh, good. There's Brad.
So where are you, Marianne?
I am at the University of Idaho Library in a classroom. So it's this is just a more convenient location than the library I used the last time. And I don't know why this never occurred to me. But I was we were at dinner the other night and I was like, oh, the U of I must have a library, and they do, and they're very welcome and accommodating. So it's good.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I think that neither Penny nor Jeff are going to make the meeting tonight.
And Molly's not going to make the meeting.
Okay.
So,
Oh, right.
yeah. So we've got, okay.
Will you have a quorum?
Yes.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4. There'll be 5 of us as long as Dale shows up. There's 4 of us here now. Is half a quorum? Oh, there's Dale.
There's
Don't
Dale.
need it.
Okay, good.
Don't worry. Yes, Dale's here.
Has Dominic sent out the
Yes,
schematic?
and I apologize. He sent the slides and I haven't sent them out to everybody else, but I will do that before I leave here tonight.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh,
There's Penny's here.
Penny's here. Oh, good.
Penny, what are you?
I am, I just had a strong gin and tonic. I'd prefer not to take notes.
I'm already taking them.
Thanks, Elaine.
Sure.
My family's out at the pool.
What's the
Well,
weather like there? It's freezing here.
Oh my God, it is spectacular. We've had perfect weather and I'm always, I go through this intense sadness as I have to leave my daughter tomorrow and knowing I won't see her for months and months.
Yeah.
That's hard.
It never goes away.
Nope.
Well, enjoy that.
Yes, it's been a great visit.
Nice. Well, I'm sitting in our one of our bedrooms at this place on Cape Breton, Nova
Oh,
Scotia.
nice. Where in Cape Breton are you?
Currently, we're in Port Hood.
Mm-hmm.
Tomorrow, we're going to make a epic journey and drive the entire Cabot Trail.
It's lovely. It's lovely.
Went to the Fishermen's Cooperative today and got lobsters already steamed, and we enjoyed them.
Oh, good. That's
Very
wonderful.
good.
He
Okay,
cracked
I see that.
and cut the tail for us, so we didn't need any fancy implements.
Even better.
Sounds
Great.
perfect.
Okay, I am going to call the meeting to order at 7:01. Public comment. Do we have anyone who would like to make public comment? I see Amanda.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. There I am. I have a couple of questions that weren't resolved at the meeting before the last one. I'd like to ask them tonight, if I may.
Sure.
Okay. One, I know I mentioned to you, Elaine, had to do with the fire suppression system that was eliminated. I was wondering what the 500 square foot and under rule or
5,000. It's 5,000.
sorry, I meant 5,000. That Mr. Odens mentioned. All I could find, like you, was a state law about 7,500 square feet and over needing a sprinkler system. So I wonder, I don't think he's here tonight, is he?
Yes, he is.
Oh, then I can ask him personally. Mr. Odens, could you enlighten me?
Yeah, so Mass General Law sets a 7,500 square foot threshold for requiring a sprinkler system. But for assembly occupancy buildings, which a public library would be, that limit is actually 5,000. So it's because of the type of building it is. There's a different requirement, which is a more stringent requirement because it's a publicly occupied building.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. And I have a question actually for Lauren Starra, if I could just do that, if she's willing to talk to me. Can I ask her a question?
You can
Yes.
ask a question.
Hi, how you doing? My question is that a few months ago during the winter months, when there was talk about cutting back the library in some way or another, you mentioned that program areas were verboten, that was not going to happen. But that seems to have changed. I'm wondering why the MBLC changed their mind on that. And now you're able to nip those areas as well.
I would not characterize what we said last week at our last meeting as changing our minds. We made the statement that we would be willing to look at a plan that reduced square footage as long as all the program functionality remains the same. And the plan appears, we're on our way to a plan that does that. We still have not approved the plan. And we will look at it very carefully in terms of the programmatic functionality before we approve it or say, no, we can't do that. But I have to say that the cost of the estimate was absolutely shocking to us. And we recognize that we have to do whatever we can to bring those costs down. So that's why we're working so hard to try to get it under 5,000 square feet.
Okay. Just real quick, do you think there's any chance that MBLC might consider giving Shutesbury some extra money like it did with Gloucester and Amherst, like when they
Amanda, we're giving you 75% of actual costs.
I know. I'm just
We have
asking.
never done anything like that ever in the history of this program.
Well, I thought it was worth asking.
And Gloucester is getting maybe 40%. You're getting 75. So no, it's not. And
No, that's a no.
It's in statute that we can't give more than 75%. So
Okay.
no.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank
We're
you.
gonna move- Thank you. We're going to move on to Mike. Mike, do you want to?
Yeah, thanks. I just had kind of a request as far as the agenda items that are posted for the meetings. They are, to me, very, very vague. And I think if they were a little bit more detailed, have some more people that would be attending the meetings to find out what's happening. I especially was concerned about the last meeting where the topic was schematic design budget. And when the meeting started, it was just the discussion started about an email from Neil Joyce. And I have to admit, for about the first 5 minutes, I had no idea what you guys were talking about. And I never realized that there was going to be a vote to award additional spending for additional design costs. If that had been in the agenda, I'm sure there'd be some other people who would have been interested to attend that meeting. And it's the same with the meeting tonight. I really don't know what to expect, what you folks are going to be doing tonight. It's just, it's very vague, and I'd like to see that those agenda items could be a little bit more clear, because it seems like there's a lot of issues coming up with the planning of the library at this point, and I think it's time that more members of the town are aware of what's going on, and if they have a heads up from what they can expect in an agenda item, it might help a lot. So I hope you can do that. Thanks.
Sure, thank you. Mary Lou?
Hi, yes, Mary Lou Conca. This question for Lauren, like when she was just speaking with Amanda, and she made a comment, Lauren, you said we are giving you 75% of this cost. So I'm curious who the we, okay, are. I know it's your agency, but where does that money come from? Does that money not come from the greater fund of taxes of the Massachusetts citizens? Or
Yes,
are
it
you?
does. So you,
Oh,
if you want to
okay,
say you are giving you that money, that's fine with me. I mean, it's, yes, it is state bond funding authorized by the Massachusetts legislature for use in improving public library buildings through our agency.
okay, so improving as well as building?
Yes.
Is that what you guys do? You improve structures that already exist? Okay, that's really good. Thank you for that.
Within under the auspices of our regulations, and there are very clear guidelines as to what we can and can't do with that money.
Right, right. So actually what we are is a group of contributors to the fund that you're talking about that you are giving to Shutesbury. Is that correct?
Well, I am not an expert on where this money comes from. You would have to
Mhm.
speak to the state auditor about that. What I know is that this is bond money authorized by the state legislature.
Okay, so you used the term bond, B-O-N-D, you're saying?
Yes.
Thank you. Alrighty, thanks.
Thank you. Any more public comments? April?
Hi, I just wanted to say, I feel like this process that you are going through has been incredibly transparent, and I really, really appreciate that a lot. And also, just anecdotally, I was in Hancock, New Hampshire this week, and we're a town of 1,600 people, huge town, with a little library. And it's an older library. It's very, it's very different, but it's about the same size. It was really easily managed by one person on duty, and there were so many people loving that library. So I just wanted to share that, and also just how much I appreciate your transparency in this process.
Thank you. Okay. Mary Lou, did you have your hand up another time?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'll take it down.
Thank
I
you.
have- Yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right, moving on to the review of the minutes. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of June 6th?
I
Make
move we approve those minutes.
From June 6th, that's Dalmas.
I'll second it.
Okay. Any changes, corrections, or additions? Hearing none, a roll call vote, please. Mary Ann Antonellis,
Aye.
Delmas,
Dalmas, aye.
Foster,
Foster, I.
Poole,
Pool eye.
Jakes,
She's muted.
I,
and Paleo, aye. Motion was approved unanimously. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of the corrected minutes of June 13th?
I'll make a motion to approve the corrected minutes of June 13th.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Stalmus.
Okay, any changes or corrections? All right, hearing none. Antonellis,
Antonellis, aye.
Delmas,
Stalmus, aye.
Foster,
Foster, I abstain. I wasn't there.
okay. Poole,
Pool eye.
Jakes,
Jake's I.
and Paleo, aye. Those were unanimous. All right, on to review of the schematic design and revised site plan. Take it away, Matt.
All right, I'm going to share my screen. You all see this okay?
Yes.
Great. So this is the presentation that we shared with the design subcommittee last week. There's only one new piece of material here, so this is really for the benefit of those of you that weren't able to be at that meeting last week. Over the last 2 weeks, we've been working hard in our office and have made what we think is some very good progress. We're happy with the way things have been shaping up, and I think we had a good meeting last week. So just to refresh people's memory, this was the schematic design plan that we had priced in discussions with the building committee and with our consultant team and the MDLC. We targeted certain areas. So these highlighted areas are the areas that we had kind of highlighted for potential reduction. Specifically, a couple of things to point out, because our goal is to reduce the overall total building square footage down below the threshold that requires a sprinkler system. We're able to eliminate the fire pump room. We're also able to eliminate the ATS room, which is for the automatic transfer switch for an emergency generator, which powers the fire pump. So if the fire pump's gone, we don't need that room for the ATS. In addition, we are eliminating the covered outdoor program space. And so with it goes the outdoor storage area, covered porches we're eliminating. And then really, and the third bathroom, because the building's getting smaller, we're able to eliminate one of the 3 bathrooms and just have 2 single occupancy bathrooms to meet the code requirement. And then lastly, we're targeting this, really all of the areas in the building that are not net program. In other words, circulation space, anything that isn't directly contributing to the net program requirements for this library. So, you know, the lobby, the space between the meeting room and the lobby, which really is created by the fact that we have bathrooms and a kitchen here, and you have to walk past those to get into the meeting room. So that area contributes to what we call a grossing factor. So we're looking at ways to tighten up the plan and kind of, you know, wring some of that extra space out of the building. So just looking at this as a kind of program distribution, we had adults and children located next to each other, and that was really driving the kind of overall width of this building. And then some of the smaller rooms located along the outer edges with circulation, computers in the middle, central lobby, a meeting room that was open to the lobby space, and then everything gray is all of the support program. So this now is a diagram of a reduced footprint building. The red dashed line that you see here is the footprint of the previous design, so you can get a general sense of how much the building footprint has shrunk. And one of the things that we wanted to try to do when we were looking at this is reduce the overall width of the building, thinking that in conversations with our structural engineer, that as we reduce the width, we're also reducing then the span of the structural members that span across that width. And when we reduce that span, we reduce the size of those members. We can also simplify the construction type. And so the hope here is that we might even, as we look at a different structural system, we might even open this up to potential bid by contractors that might otherwise not have felt able to build a building of this size. You know, if it's more like a large residential project than a more institutional or commercial project, it might make for a larger pool of bidders and hopefully also help with cost. So one thing I'll mention here is that instead of locating adults and children next to each other, we've located them here in series.
National Grid is coming into town. They are trimming.
So adults and children are located in series now rather than next to each other. So that allows us to slim the building overall. And the expectation here was that we would use the long sides of those rooms, the east and west sides, which are also the more challenging sides in terms of dealing with solar orientation for windows. Use those long sides as a way to kind of maximize collection, housing the collection with tall book stacks, so that we're able to do lower stacks in the middle of the spaces that you can see over. So tall stacks along both sides. But you can see that if we do that, then we don't have windows on the east and west sides. We only have the potential for natural light and views to the north from the children's room. And so we thought if we modified the plan a little bit, we can open up views, bring natural light directly into the adult room. So both the adult room and the children's room get access to natural light. It's north light, so it's easier to manage. We preserve bookshelves on the long sides. And the other thing is, as we do this kind of operation on the plan, we tighten up the threshold between adults and children and create more opportunities to potentially provide some separation between them for acoustics. In terms of other modifications to the plan, the general arrangement is very similar. You come in through a vestibule into now a much reduced lobby. The bathrooms have moved off to the side, and so there's now nothing between the meeting room and the lobby. Support space along the side of the meeting room. Circulation is centrally located with teens directly across, staff workroom behind. And here I'll move into, this is now an actual plan with that, based on that diagram. And again, you're seeing this in relation to the red dashed line, which is the footprint from the previous design. I mentioned this potential ability to close off children. So we're showing here what could be a slider, a sliding door that closes off the children's room. This is about 10 feet wide. So although this is quite generous through here, it allows you the possibility to create some acoustic separation between children and adults when there's a lot of activity in the children's room. We have a similar condition at the meeting room, between the meeting room and lobby. And there's also off hours closure here, just to the right of this restroom. So a partition would close along this line, which would mean that the left side of the building is open during off hours, and everything from that partition to the right would be secure. I mentioned the opening between the meeting room and the lobby. The idea is that with the lobby and the meeting room right next to each other and a generous opening between them, we can reduce the meeting room size, but we can expand the meeting room capacity into the lobby. So a reduced meeting room, we can fit about 49 chairs, but if we add additional chairs behind that, out through that threshold and into the lobby, we can expand that capacity to about 67, we think. This would be closed off by a series of sliders, a large one and a small one, the small one being 3 feet wide. So if this was closed, somebody could open a much smaller, more easily maneuverable door to get into the meeting room. And then there's a program summary down below. The left-hand column is the original program that we started with. The green column is the program reductions that we had talked about with the building committee and the MBLC as a kind of target before we started looking at revised plans. And then the blue column is the actual square footages based on this plan, with that last column, then the difference between the green and the blue columns. We knew that we needed to target around somewhere between 600 and 650 net square feet in order to get the overall reduction that we needed to get down to below 5,000 gross square feet. These are net numbers down here. So the original net was 4,098, revised net 3,650, and we're hitting 3,461. The difference here at the bottom, this green column was a 448 square foot reduction from the original program. We had originally with the MBLC targeted around 650, but 200 square feet was listed in this column, but associated with the outdoor program or outdoor storage room, which was not part of the net program in the or net square footage in the original program. So we revised that to correct this. And what we're finding is that the amount of reduction that we need, this 637 square feet, is right in the range that we anticipated needing to get out of the total net square footage. When we break that down and look at it on a room by room basis, it's a little more clear. So adult collections actually has grown even from the original program by 30 square feet, not a lot, but it's slightly bigger. The adult computer area has reduced, but it's reduced based on the acknowledgement that the program only called for 2 seats. And so we accommodate 2 workstations with circulation space around it and find that we're able to do that in 52 square feet, not 100 or 80 square feet. So even though this is a 48 square foot reduction, we feel like that's a reasonable reduction. The reading nook, which is this area here, actually this is mislabeled. This should be periodical and adult seating here. But if we look at periodical and adult seating, we're down 44 square feet from the target. You know, we can look at the way that the overall adult program is allocated. In the aggregate, adult program is slightly higher than where we were. Going down the list, the circulation desk is pretty much right on the money. The community room was probably the biggest reduction, but as I said before, we were able to reduce the size of the meeting room, but maintain the capacity. The program asked for 50 seats. We think we can fit 49 in a 586 square foot room, but then expand that capacity to 67. So we feel like that 114 square feet is a reasonable approach. The meeting room closet, we reduced by 55 square feet, but we also laid out the area that we need to store dollies for stackable chairs, area for folding tables, and demonstrate that we're able to accommodate the things that we need to put all of the furniture from the meeting room into that space and still reduce the size of it down from 150 to 95. Kitchenette got considerably smaller because it's really now just a kind of sideboard in the meeting room rather than a dedicated room, which was something we had talked about as a group. Reception and browsing got a little bit smaller, but we are accommodating twice the amount of shelving that the program calls for. The small study room got smaller, but we're still able to accommodate 4 people in that room. The way it's shown here, they're docked against the wall. There would be a video monitor on the wall. We've done this in a number of a number of locations. There would be a way to plug in from this table, an outlet in the table, and feed into that monitor. Staff workroom is a little bit smaller, although we've talked with Marianne about how that would get programmed, and she so far has felt comfortable with that reduction in terms of how much space we have. We'll want to look at specific furniture needs and storage, but that's where we are. And then the teen room is pretty much right on the number, with it's 2 feet 2 square feet larger. In terms of the exterior, this was the exterior of the schematic design. As everybody remembers, it was a single slope roof, sloping from the high north end to the low south end. Most of the glazing on the north side, but you had here the children's room and adult room with tall windows facing north. This is now the revised plan, keeping that same pitch of the roof, reducing the glazing overall. Number one, to reduce cost, but also to allow for maintaining the collection size, even though we're reducing the building footprint. And then we wanted to take another look or another approach at this. And so we looked at a gable roof. And what the gable roof does is it helps reduce the overall wall height and glazing areas, even from this version. And so, and it's also a simple structural system. We'd have a ridge beam. And so rather than spanning the full width, we'd only be spanning half of that width up from the load-bearing exterior walls up to a central ridge beam. So the structure, we think, might even be simpler in this version than it is in the single pitch version. And then just to give you a general sense, and again, these are all super diagrammatic at this point, but this is an interior model view of that gable roof option, just to give you a sense of the scale of it. We are hoping to hold on to a wood structure. Now that the building has simplified, we actually think the wood could be significantly cheaper than it was, and most likely would not be a heavy timber structural system anymore. And so we think it could be a more cost-effective way to go, and we would still maintain some of that warmth. Leaving it exposed. It doesn't need to be sprinklered, doesn't need to be protected in any way. And so that would allow us to maintain some of that warmth in the interior, but also the scale of this feels much more intimate than the previous version with the taller ceiling all the way through. And you get a sense here of this is standing in the adult room. You're looking through the exterior windows from adults. You can see tall stacks kind of lining the room, both in adults and in children. You can see against the wall back here, and then lower stacks in the middle so that you're able to see, all the way through the building, see the full length. And you're seeing through the opening here into the children's room. So this is about a 10-foot wide opening between children and adults, and there would be a sliding panel that could close that off when you need to for acoustic reasons. On the right is the periodicals and reading area, and then closer to you on the right is the director's office. And then just to summarize this into a couple different categories. So left to right, we have the original schematic design. We have on the two right-hand columns are it's the same plan, but different roof concepts. One would be the same monopitch roof, the other would be the gable roof. If we look first at exterior enclosure, the window wall ratio, so the area of total exterior wall to the area of total glazing in the schematic design was 38%. That ratio has reduced to 25% in the monopitch roof and 23% in the gable roof. And that has to do with the fact that we've tried to, not only have we reduced the size of the building, but we've tried where we can to reduce the amount of glazing as a way to address cost. The total wall area you can see has decreased from schematic design. It's slightly lower in the gable version because you have a continuously low eave, whereas in the monopitch roof, the exterior wall gets taller as you move to the north. So that number is going to be slightly higher in the monopitch roof than the gable roof. And the same is true with glazed area. Both of these represent a pretty significant reduction from schematic design, and the gable roof is slightly less total glazed area than the monopitch. In terms of building area, The original schematic design was 6,164 total gross square feet with a total net program area of 4,199 for a building efficiency of 68%. When we look at the new plan, we're now at an efficiency of 80%. So we really tightened up the relationship of net program to total gross. And you can see the net program is 3461, which was the number from the preceding slide. In terms of total gross area, what we found in researching this with our code consultant is that in terms of the 5,000 square foot threshold, that actually applies to the total area under roof. So not just the exterior walls of the building, but any roof projection. So any eave, any porch, anything. And so the total, we'll need some minimal eave around the building to shed water and snow and deal with gutters. We're going to have a little bit of coverage at the front entrance. We've deleted the porch, but we need some minimal coverage to keep snow and rain off of you when you're walking into the building or dropping off books at the book drop. And so the total roof area that we have in these schemes is as close to 5,000 as we can get, 4,990. And the total gross area of the building is 4,308. So we're comparing then that 4,308 to the 3,461, and that gives us the 80% efficiency. So it's a much tighter building in this incarnation than it was in the previous one. In terms of collections, then the next group, you can see the percentages here that we were accommodating in the schematic design versus the percentages of collection that we're accommodating here in the revised design. So in all cases, we're performing well in the three main categories: adult, children, and teen. We're performing better than we were. We've been able to accommodate more shelving. And that has a lot to do with the fact that we have more exterior wall that we're dedicating to housing collection, as opposed to having windows to the exterior. And so we're hitting a higher percentage of the target. Browsing and circulation shelving areas, although that's quite a small part of the total collection. In the schematic design, they were both, we had more shelving than we needed in both. We've reduced that, but we still have more shelving than we need. So we're providing enough shelving. If anything, we can reduce the amount that we have, and we've already talked about ways to do that. And then lastly, in terms of energy, I'm sure everybody remembers the impetus for doing a south-facing single pitch roof was to create a very simple flat plane that allowed us to maximize installation of solar panels oriented favorably for ultimately providing the net zero energy building. The estimated energy consumption for that building, based on our mechanical engineer's estimate, was 53,000 kilowatt hours. With a smaller building, energy consumption is going to go down. So we're now targeting an estimated 44,000 kilowatt hours. So it's about a 17% reduction in energy use. The good news there as it relates to solar is that it takes less energy to operate these two buildings, and therefore we need less solar to meet or to achieve net zero. And so even though we're reducing the area of roof, either in the monopitch or in the gable version, we don't need as much PV. And so that reduction isn't really negatively impacting us as it relates to solar performance. And based on some initial conversations we've had with our solar consultant, he feels like, and this is very preliminary, we've got to continue to test this and run calculations, but he feels that even in the gable version with east-west facing solar, we will get enough yield to achieve net zero based on an estimated 44,000 kilowatt hours of energy consumption. So that's a snapshot of where we are. I also, before we get into schedule, I'm going to stop sharing this. Can't find the button to stop sharing, however. Oh, there it is. Okay. And I'm going to share a different file. So one of the, we've talked about square footage reduction, and that square foot reduction, which has a value to it. 1,000 square foot reduction has a dollar value that, we're building 1,000 square feet less. And so that costs less than the previous version. But it's also allowing us to eliminate the sprinkler system. And the sprinkler system was valued at about $1.5 million. By the time you buy the water storage tanks and the fire pump and the generator, and you're paying for the sprinkler system itself, it adds up quite quickly. The propane tank for the generator, the lines to feed, those things. So all of that is about $1.5 million. One of the other big areas that we were targeting was site costs. We all know that this is a big site and with extensive wetlands. And so we were pushing the building quite far back from the road in order to stay sort of fully out of the buffer zones. And there's a cost to that. And so one of the things that we wanted to target was moving the building closer to the road by 100 square feet. We're 300 square feet, or sorry, 100 linear feet. We're 300 linear feet from the face of the schematic design building to Leverett Road. I don't know if it's a little difficult to make out the wetland delineation on this slide, but this light gray toned area here is the east wetland, and here is the west wetland. And the setbacks, these dashed lines are actually, those are the limit of work. So they come, fairly close to each other. And so we were trying to push the building and the parking lot, which is next to it, back far enough that we were behind these wetlands and out of the buffer instead of further towards the front of the site and impacting the wetland buffers. What you see here, though, toned in orange, is the amount of clearing that we were going to be doing. Most of this was outside of the buffer zones, but it's still area that we had to clear. We had to strip, the top layer of soil. We had to do grading. There would be, probably soil removal and disposal, regrading, replanting. So all of that orange shaded area has cost associated with it. If we move the building further forward, we think we can reduce those costs, not just reduce the length of the driveway, the duct banks that provide power from Leverett Road to the building, the bioswale that runs along the driveway. Not only can we reduce all of those things by 100 linear feet, which again has a cost impact, we think we can reduce the building footprint, move it 100 feet forward, and significantly reduce the amount of cleared area behind the building, pushing the building closer to this previously disturbed area. I think it's probably impossible for you to make this out, but with my cursor, I'm tracing the outline of the former garage. So it's right about here in the site. And the front of the building then is basically at the back of that former garage building. So you all have a general kind of visual of where that garage was. That's about how far back now we're talking for the building. And so that puts the building in an area that was already cleared. It's been mowed for years. It's previously disturbed area. And so, arguably, even though we are going to impact the buffer here, obviously, you can see the dashed line here. This is the 25-foot buffer around the resource here and here. And we're keeping the road and the building out of the 25-foot buffer. We're obviously in the 50-foot buffer. But the trade-off being we're in area that's already cleared, and we're trying to minimize the impact to areas of the site that are not yet cleared. And so we think that there's, although we haven't been able to quantify this yet because we don't have a site plan, this is something that our office produced. We do not yet have a landscape site plan or a civil site plan, which we're in the process of doing, and that will get priced by our estimator. And he'll be able to quantify what it really means to move this building forward. But the strategy here, I think, is clear, hopefully, that we think that there's some real potential savings here. So that's where we are, essentially. I'm happy to answer anybody's questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Will you please have these, make these available to us so I could put them up for public viewing?
Yeah, you have the PDF from last week already, but I'll send you the site plans.
Thank you. Thank you. Mary Ann?
So Matt, so we had talked about having a preliminary meeting with the Conservation Commission with some preliminary site plans, and that's scheduled for this Thursday. Do you
Yeah.
think we need to push that out, or do you think, are you expecting site
No.
plans from Stimson?
We are not expecting site plans from Stimson by then. It's just not enough time. But I do think that we can still have the conversation. I mean, I think that we had a meeting with Stimson and Fuss and O'Neill to talk about these plans, and they didn't have any concerns with what we're showing. That I'm sure they will make some tweaks to this. The Stimson thinks that there are potentially ways to further reduce the paved area in the parking lot and the turnaround, which they're going to look at. We may reconfigure the driveway slightly. We may look at, slight adjustments to the relationship between the parking area and the building, just to kind of tighten things up. But I think generally speaking, this conveys the approach in a way that I think they will understand. And we'll continue to refine this, but I think for where we are now, this should be sufficient for that conversation.
Okay.
At least to, elicit feedback and hear if they have any concerns about this, that, we didn't want to get too far down the road, obviously, before hearing those sort of initial impressions.
Right. Thank you. Anything else from the committee? Laura or Neil?
I'm good.
Okay. Rob, I don't usually take public comment and questions during the middle of the meeting, but I will let you ask this one question if it's a short one for clarification.
Yeah, I believe it's very short.
Okay.
Given the reduced footprint of the building, is it possible to turn the building so that the axis is east-west and a monoslope roof has a much less serious height differential between the front and the back?
It is possible, but it means we would not be able to move the building as far forward on the site, and so we wouldn't be able to realize the same savings, we don't think, in terms of site work, because as you rotate that building 90 degrees, you're impacting the wetland buffers to a much greater extent, right? As it is now, we can kind of slip it in between the 25-foot buffers. If it was rotated, we wouldn't be able to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Any more questions from the committee? I really appreciate this. This has been a rework that I think reflects what we need and what we like. And I'd like to hear a motion from someone on the committee as to which design, because we do have the two with the gabled roof and the monoslope roof. So I'd like to hear a motion to accept one or either of the designs or none of the designs.
Jake's moves to accept the gabled roof design.
I second that, and that's Delma.
Okay. Are there any comments, questions from the committee?
Question?
Yes, Brad.
Matt, do you have any major concerns over the gable versus the monopitch roof?
I don't. And actually, I think a couple things to mention about the gable roof. Number one, I think there's a chance that it will be more cost effective. And so if that's the case, I'm all for it. I also think, when we were looking, you saw that one interior view, and again, it's pretty schematic, but it does change the feel of the interior. And I think as this building gets smaller, I think that sense of intimacy is even more important. And I do think that the gable roof brings more of that in a way than the monopitch roof does. And so for that reason, I like it. We're happy with the way that interior looks like it could develop as we get further into this. I know that there are people in town, based on the community presentation that we had. I know there were a lot of comments about, does this feel like it fits into Shutesbury? And I think there are probably quite a few people out there that feel like a gable roof is going to do that more than a monopitch roof would, and that's fine. But we, from our perspective, I think we feel comfortable that we can make a good building out of this either way. We're comfortable with the gable roof. I think we can make a nice building out of it. One of our hesitations with the gable was solar production, and we are reassured by our solar design consultant's initial take that he thinks that we still might be able to get enough PV up there, even though it's east-west facing. And I don't know if you remember, but the solar system that we had settled on for the monopitch roof was actually what they call a dual tilt system. So the panels were on the roof kind of like this, facing east and west, rather than down the roof angled facing south. And the reason is that you balance the production over the course of the day, rather than hitting the solar panels for a more limited period of daytime that are only south facing. And so that even distribution, he thinks, sees some benefit, even if you sacrifice a little bit of total yield. His recommendation was that was still a better approach. And so what we're finding is, in the east-west gable orientation, we're still in a way doing the same thing. We're spreading that the sort of collection of solar energy over the course of the day, and sounds like we're able to get decent results out of it. My only concern is that you'll now see the solar, which solar is not the best looking thing, but at the same time, it makes a statement. And I think it says this is a community that feels very strongly about, a sustainable future, and we're going to do what we can. And this building is net zero, and we're proud of it. And so I think, from that standpoint, it's not a bad thing to kind of showcase that, no matter where you're standing around the building.
Thank you.
Stephen, you have a question?
Well, actually, it's a comment, and I made some of these comments at our last meeting. I think there are a number of strong points to the gable design. One concern that I had with the previous scheme was with that long, continuous sloping roof, that the height of the ceiling in the meeting room was going to be such that the space would not be as inviting a space as I think with the gable, which gives you a peaked or cathedral type ceiling, will make it a much more inviting and comfortable space. Secondly, I think that with the low slope roof, snow is going to sit on the solar panels for a much longer period of time, given the right weather conditions, than they ever will on the gable roof. So those are 2 points. And I had numerous other positive comments that I made at the last meeting about the rework scheme, how I think besides reducing the size of the building, I think it makes it function a lot better. Just being able to separate the children's space from the adult space, I guess the area that's now being called the periodical or the nook, it's going to be a very nice space. The fact that the meeting room now can expand out into the lobby, all very positive developments. So I'm for the gable, and I think this plan has gotten very strong.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen.
Any other committee comments? Hearing none, let's take a roll call vote. Antonellis,
Antonellis, aye.
Dalmas,
Almas, aye.
Foster,
Foster, I.
Poole,
Pool eye.
Jakes,
Jake's eye.
Vallejo, aye. The motion approved unanimously. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Do we have any other unanticipated business? Yes, Laura.
Matt, you sort of cut your slides off at the schedule. Were you going to go
Oh.
over the schedule?
Oh, right. Thank
Yeah,
you.
sorry, thanks. I had forgotten about that. 1 second. Yeah, so this is the schedule now. We're seeing we have our next meeting next Wednesday, June 28th. This area that I'm highlighting with the cursor is the schematic redesign. It's a 2-month phase, including a 2-week cost estimate period. We're targeting the beginning of the 2nd week of July to submit our pricing set to our estimator. That'll be the revised pricing set with the reduced building footprint, reduced consultant narratives from everybody, modified site plan for landscape and civil. The estimator will take about 2 weeks to estimate it, and then we'll spend the last week of July reviewing that and making sure that we are where we need to be, and if we're not, figuring out what else can be done. With the expectation that all is going to go well, we are showing a design development phase start in the beginning of August. Design development is 3 months. We will price it again at the end of design development, and then we have a 4.5-month construction document phase. So we're looking at putting this out to bid at the end of March 2024. That'll be about a 2-month process, and then construction start by roughly the beginning of the summer in 2024. Any questions about the schedule?
Nope.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
Not from us.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from the committee? Hearing nothing, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, second,
I'll second that.
and we will have a roll call vote. Antonellis,
Antonellis, aye.
Delmas,
Almas, aye.
Foster,
Foster, I.
Poole,
Pool eye.
Jakes.
She left.
Oh, sorry, I'm taking minutes too, so and Paleo, aye. So the meeting has been ended at 7:55. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you, Matt and Dominic, for the work that you've been doing. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I will
Appreciate it.
see many of you on Thursday. If we have a quorum, we will not be doing any discussion, and I guess Marianne and I will be. Yes, Marianne.
I did post the meeting.
It's probably too late.
Oh no, I posted it.
Oh, you did post it. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I didn't see that. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So Grace will put the Zoom link both on the Conservation Commission meeting and and the library building committee meeting.
Okay, thank you.
And so Matt, you can get it either place.
Okay.
So,
And
but
it's they have us at 7 o'clock, correct? It's called
Yes.
6, but we're gonna be on at 7.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you all.
All right, thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
everyone.
Have a good night.
Bye.
I
Good night.